Hi guys, I'm going to be doing a live video today, so very much looking forward to getting this show on the road. Got a really interesting topic as well that we're going to be discussing today with our guest who will be arriving very soon. In fact, I'm just going to send her an invite now. I hope that you guys are all well. I don't want to spoil our topic, so if you just hold on for our guest, and then we're going to get started. You'll also be able to to view this live after it's recorded, sort of post the upload, and you'll be able to see and catch up in case you miss it today. We're essentially going to be talking about the culture of spirituality. That's what I can give away at the minute. We're going to be looking at the way in which this. Hi Priya, also you've joined. And we have a guest as well, Tea by the Sea Wales. Hello, thank you for joining us. So Priya, if you send a request, there should be a request option at the bottom of your section. There we go, yes. Okay. Hi Priya, you okay?
Hi.
I think that we are okay. I think.
Did we do it?
Yes, let's do it. Let's go.
So
So we'll
nice to see you
start
on here.
again. Yeah, and yourself. So perhaps you just want to sort of reintroduce what we're going to talk about today.
Sure. One of the things that James and I did a couple of weeks ago was simply have a conversation, and we wanted to give people a window into our conversations because they were fun.
Mm.
Today, one of the things that we really wanted to talk about was the culture of spirituality. Is it something that you can get quick with spirituality? Is it something that takes its course or its time? What does spiritual materialism mean? And what are some of the traps that people fall into in today's world, which is a modern world? And that's kind of where we're going to go with the
Mhm.
conversation today.
Mhm.
Both of us are on a path that really is focused on connecting with ourselves as well as others, and it's just an important topic to us.
Absolutely. I will be uploading this. I plan to upload it onto our page after this. So just for the record, if you want to tell everybody a bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Okay, so I founded a company recently. It's about 2 years in, which can feel like a lifetime in itself, called the Intention Table, where it is about bringing Eastern philosophy and Western science through a trauma informed lens. So, focusing on the concepts of yoga beyond asana, which is the way that yoga is received in the West. It's really about using the mind practice of yoga and the benefits and purpose of meditation to help one with self discovery. And the trauma informed principles are based on my own life history of unraveling complex trauma and PTSD.
Mhm.
And so being very mindful of some of the things that can happen when someone is experiencing unraveling with those types of life experiences back behind them. Um, and it's now found here in Dallas in safe houses for human trafficking, addiction recovery, counseling center, and that's the work that I do here. But
Mhm.
as well as that, helping those with anxiety and depression, sleeplessness, looping thoughts with tools that they can put in their toolbox for life.
Mhm. Brilliant. And I think what you mentioned there is really interesting because we do see an emergence of ancient wisdom under a modern guise. I would say that when I first learnt about what mindfulness was, I was like, hang on a minute, this is very much like Buddhist,
Sure.
very Buddhist teaching. And speaking of, we want to make sure we engage our audience today. There's a comment by Wolfgang Gonzalez.
Hey,
Cutting Through
Wolfgang.
Spiritual Materialism is a great book by Chogyam Trungpa. Have you
Yeah,
read that?
actually, yes, actually, he is the person who coined. He's a Rinpoche.
Okay.
My belief is that he's a Rinpoche who
Hmm.
actually coined the term spiritual materialism
Hmm.
and talks a lot about, and it's actually a very ancient concept.
Hmm.
But it taught basically what it talks about is when someone uses like positivity, mindfulness, or even drugs, whatever their drug of choice might be, which could be meditation in itself,
Mm.
believe it or not, as the guise of being okay. That in itself denies the sense of self, and that
Mm.
is the beginnings of spiritual materialism. And that's
Brilliant.
my understanding of it.
Interesting. So before we get deeper into this, then, because I think that's something that we should definitely explore, the topic that we had today was, as you mentioned, getting spiritual quick. Is it a thing, and how does it manifest itself? So I want you to get the ball rolling. Why, or not even why, is there a culture of get spiritual quick? Is it bad? Is it good?
No, I think that healing and spirituality go hand in hand.
Yep.
And there are lots of people who are longing for healing, right?
Mm.
There are lots of people who are longing for this magic quick fix.
Hmm.
And so, to me, this is my personal opinion that yes, that there is this drive to heal quickly, which
Hmm.
then turns into being more spiritual, which turns into um, fixing,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And to feeling
Hmm.
okay. So because I believe that for a lot of people, healing and spirituality often go hand in hand, that it can be this culture of get spiritual quick. What about you? What do you think?
I think it depends on the individual. I mean, there are 7 billion people on the planet, and we're all individuals. As much as there are, we all are one, and that's something I really enjoy about the Sikh teachings. They talk about ik, everybody coming from the same source.
One.
But as individuals, we experience the world differently through our, various perceptions. And I think that, when it comes to get spiritual quick, perhaps one of the issues is that everybody goes at their own pace and
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be made to feel rushed at all. And there's a saying my grandmother used to have: "Haste springs waste." I'll tell you a funny story that I actually told my partner, who I'm sort of with. I've always told her that saying, and she was in a rush to go to a restaurant. And I said, "Hey, springs waste, relax." But she was determined that she wanted to vacuum the bedroom before we left. So she started rushing to vacuum the bedroom. And what happened? She hoovered up my phone charger.
Nice.
So it's a lesson almost, in that kind of that experience, that we should go at our own pace. And the deeper that we connect with ourselves and the world around us, we get in sync with nature. And things seem to happen in nature's time. And nature's time is not linear, is it? It's cyclical. And that takes into account your own mental rhythms, your own bodily rhythms, the world around you. So by synchronizing yourself with that, things just start to flow. And when things start to flow, you pick up a certain rhythm, a mental rhythm, a bodily rhythm, a spiritual rhythm, and you go at your own pace and you find the answers that you're looking for in your own time. What do you think?
No, that's for sure. I mean, look, because I believe that we are beings in a body and
Hmm.
we are spiritual beings in a body, that's our given birthright, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
wholeness. And spirituality is our, to me, everybody's given birthright just because we are all in existence here. And with that being said, because we are spiritual beings, it ends up being perhaps our responsibility of our lifetime to understand ourselves. Now, can it be done quickly? I personally believe that people have near death experiences or traumatic
Yeah, yeah.
experiences
Hmm.
or who have this really like insightful experience that for a temporary moment in time can numb out consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
but simultaneously for some can be this really turning around of their whole existence that helps them actualize themselves, which can lead to a quick spiritual growth, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that there are things that as human beings that we could do daily as a spiritual practitioner, but I am in 100% agreement with you that it's part of nature, and that we all have our own journey, whatever that journey looks like for each individual, right? It's not something that can be forced or can be taught even. I think it's an individual experience, right? Like, you can intellectualize things all day long, but until it becomes your direct experience, then what is it?
And that's ironically something that we talked about, didn't we, in our first conversation, about sort of me talking about my experience of learning this stuff at university and, you know, writing, but it was the experience and the emotional connection that gave life to, you know, it was, you know, kind of what set it on fire. This is what I love about the Sufi tradition, because it's all about engaging the emotions. Some of the poems of Rumi, they're all about setting the heart and the soul on fire with experience. And exactly.
What does that mean to you? Like, when you say to set the soul on fire, what does that mean?
To me, it's more of a feeling, and I've experienced it on a number of occasions. You know, there's this idea of obviously the Kundalini fire that goes through your body, and you feel it. I've definitely experienced times when, in the middle of winter in the UK, when it gets much colder than Texas, I've experienced being asleep at night, and my entire body feels this immense heat, almost like there's just heat radiating from me, but the heat is almost coming from the inside and then manifesting externally on my skin, because my skin does feel hot, and, you know, I've been told that as well. But it's almost like it's coming from within. It's like my blood feels warm and on fire as well. But it's not an uncomfortable type of heat, like, you know, somebody had a fever and they have that really uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like that. It feels really nourishing. It's just this feeling that nothing in life can go wrong. And I believe that to be the power of the soul. And I essentially believe that you can capture that energy and that power that you have within inside yourself, and then use it as a means of empowerment for, you know, whatever goals that you have, whether they're spiritual or material. But this isn't something, in my opinion, that you can get off a meme, off Instagram, for example. It's something that very personal, and some people suggest techniques, and you know, I don't disagree with those. But for me, so I'll give you a good example. Right, I have music that I like in my mind, that I like mentally, and then I have music that touches my soul. So classical music, I like it. It relaxes me sometimes. It motivates me sometimes. It has a mental effect on me, but I wouldn't say it touches my soul. Old school R&B music, where they sing very passionately and it's just very emotional, that heart chakra, that music touches my soul. And I've noticed, especially when I was younger, I would have these R&B sessions at night where it was almost a form of meditation with my headphones, and my soul would just catch on fire. You know, just this feeling of just bliss. You know, nothing can go wrong, just absolute bliss. And have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, music, but also for me, it is being immersed in nature, right? Where I am just so connected to whatever I'm with, the ocean or the mountain or the tree. It feels like this state of oneness. You're describing it as bliss. For me, it feels like oneness and alive. I feel alive in my body. I feel like resonance all over. And yeah, like for me, Soul on Fire is all of those things that you described. It's also about knowing purpose, and to me, it's being of service. And so I think that everybody has a different fire that will invoke within their soul for what makes them resonate and feel alive. The individual journey is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, right? when we are wanting to know ourselves or to change habits or to heal, we are really focused on this end game, okay, and this end outcome. And there's a lot of modern day techniques or programs out there that don't really speak to the truth of what it's like to go through self-discovery. Most people hear the end product of a Kundalini awakening, right? They hear about the sexiness of a Kundalini awakening. I'm going to use that word, sexiness of Kundalini awakening, where it's this like enlightened state of being, XYZ, right? But they don't know about the horrors that might happen in your mind, body, and soul as you are perhaps beginning. Most Kundalini awakenings happen with this chaos and this transformation and upheaval, right? That's not very sexy. That's not very pleasant to hear about. Nobody wants to talk about the hard work, that self-discovery, and to unravel your patterns and to get to know yourself. It is a lot of undoing and unlearning so that you can strip away ego, right? Strip away the identities that have been built for you, stripping away. The end result, sure, can be a more peaceful mind, a more grounded state of being. But I can't tell you how many people I meet who think of meditation as being very calm and centered. That can be the case, but really it's a path to self-realization. Meditation is a path to self-realization if you're talking about ancient wisdom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means that you're looking at things like your patterns, habits, conditioning, your sense of self, your life experiences. You're looking at memories, implicit and explicit. That can be very chaotic, right?
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of things out there that don't really talk about the work that it can take and the time that it can take. I see things like learn meditation in 5 weeks, right? Yes. I personally believe this is also a personal opinion, that because I'm rooted in ancient philosophy, meditation is something that can be experienced. No one can teach you meditation. They can teach you techniques to practice one-pointed concentration. They can teach you techniques to practice focus. They can teach you techniques to practice staying present. But the state of meditation is this merge and this oneness, and that to me happens from something bigger than us, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot teach meditation. I can teach techniques for practicing, but meditation is something to be experienced, and so
I agree.
There's been a lot that has been lost along the way as it's come to the West and transformed almost, taken. I don't want to necessarily use the word appropriation because I'm not 100% sure if that is what I believe has happened. But it definitely has shifted away. I went through a 200-hour meditation teacher training, okay? Not once in this meditation teacher training did they mention where the ancient wisdom, okay? Not once did they mention the ancient wisdom in meditation. It was all modern day techniques for calming your mind and your body. And I was very surprised by that. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned that, especially when you use the word chaos and this journey to self-transformation not always being pretty. And perhaps the way it is portrayed is perhaps linked to marketing and trying to sell courses, perhaps. But outside of that, a good historical example of this is the story of alchemy, right? So for years and years and years, you had all of these alchemical teachings, which to my understanding was essentially for you to journey within, to get to know your own soul, your true self, that internal journey. And when the Egyptian empire fell and the Greeks, who obviously came from Europe, came into Egypt, they came across all of these alchemical writings about this treasure. You know, alchemy was all about this treasure, notwithstanding the fact that the treasure was actually within you. But the mythology around alchemy was taken very literally by the Greeks, and it was essentially they genuinely thought that there was a treasure somewhere hidden in a temple. But the sort of metaphysical aspect of it, or the mysterious aspect of the ancient wisdom, that this was the temple, your body, and hidden within the temple was the soul or your true self. And it's captured in the story of one of the Egyptian gods, Osiris, who basically has to go into the Amenta. And the Amenta is the underworld. Now, you could say that that's almost like your subconscious mind. You talked about your habits, getting to know your own self. But for him, this wasn't a pretty journey. This wasn't a nice journey. He's in the story, he spent 12 hours in the underworld, perhaps the subconscious mind, and he had to face all of these different demons. Now, if you think about what you've just mentioned, our subconscious minds, so this is also in the Matrix movie as well, it's not all pretty. It's not all, you know, flowers and rabbits and stuff like that. It's some dark stuff can be in there. Perhaps some traumas, some emotional, repressed emotions. You know, the sun can't shine every day. We've all got mixtures of good and bad
Yeah.
feelings, some more composite of more than the other. But you know, in this mythology, it's essentially telling you that Osiris went and journeyed deep into the underworld, faced all of these demons, faced all of these challenges. But when he came to the end, he was complete. He had reunited himself with his soul. And this is what the Sufis call Kami-i Kamil, which I believe is Arabic for becoming the complete person, the complete human. And it's this idea in Sufi philosophy that we also get in other philosophies, that we as humans are alone as humans, as mortals, incomplete. But when we find our true self, our soul, that is what completes us. That is what makes us that one. That is what unites us to the essence or to the source. And as we said earlier, this can happen at different rates for people. But as I absolutely agree with you, this isn't something that you can just teach. There are techniques which perhaps can help and can speed up the process. But I believe that there's a fundamental difference that I see, and I would love to get your thoughts on this. I believe there's a difference between the spiritual plane and the mental plane. I believe that the mental plane, essentially training the mind, as you said, one-pointedness, training the mind through concentration techniques. The Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about this, using training the mind so that it serves you rather than becomes an enemy and does a disservice to you. I believe that it's very important to train the mind, and I believe this is a disciplined and repetitive process. However, the soul and matters of the spiritual plane, I believe they can be very instantaneous. We talk about, love is a good example. Sometimes people genuinely, I don't know if you believe in love at first sight, but sometimes people fall in love just like that. Their soul catches on fire. There's just
Yeah, they
something.
just know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a knowing, and
The
that is
inner
the
knowing.
difference. It's just some level of just. It's difficult to explain, isn't it? It's just, yeah, you
No,
just.
no, like 100% agree, right? Okay, so like yogic philosophy, it's a similar concept in the concept of prakriti and purusha, okay? And purusha meaning that your pure consciousness and true nature, right? That's what
Hmm.
we're talking about with that concept, is that we have a true nature that has been disguised by the number of identities that we create and that we create around us, which is ego. Now,
Hmm.
ego can serve us positively, negatively. Ego is what helps us create the roles that we live, whether that's mother, father, employee, boss, child, whatever our role is what ego helps solidify for us. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
meditation, yogic practices is to help us tame the mind, like you said, so that we could peel back the layers of ourself to get
Hmm.
back to where we began, which was true nature, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Original self. the
Hmm.
self before the self became I-ness. It's called that, the
Yeah.
concept of I-ness.
Hmm.
And yes, I do believe that your soul can catch on fire and have spiritual enlightenment in a moment's notice. There are so many people, when I try to explain to them meditation and the path of meditation is this 8-limb path. Okay, this 8-limb journey through yoga to get to meditation, to then get to this concept called samadhi, which is enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't have to be this 8-limb path long journey, because like I said, there are some people who will go out into nature, and I like to explain this to people. If you've ever been in nature and you get to the point where you're, let's say, I'm going to describe a scene for you. You're at the top of the mountain and you're looking above, and all of a sudden everything becomes a haze, and you and the mountain are becoming this one, right? Like it's like you have become part of the mountain scene and the mountain scene has become you. That is called samadhi. That's enlightenment, right? So you've experienced spiritual enlightenment in an instant without going through this 8-limb path of looking at your thoughts and your actions. That was an instant, right? And so to me, that's something to think about, that yes, you can have a spiritual experience in an instant. At the same time, sometimes there's this lifelong journey of whatever it is that we are here to figure out or to learn for this lifetime, of what it is that is our responsibility, what's our purpose. Like for me, a lot of my teaching is I feel like it's a responsibility for me to pay it forward, right? To help myself, to heal myself, and then to pay it forward. And that feels like a very spiritual answer to my life, right? And some people would call that purpose, you know, but to me, I see it as being a spiritual path. And it doesn't make me better than anybody, or doesn't.
Absolutely,
that's one of the ego traps that people can fall into when they go down this spiritual path, is that they have intellectual knowledge, or that they have practice with something. It doesn't make anyone better than anyone, because we are all spiritual beings here having our individual journey. That was something that I had to learn in a really hard way. Okay, you know, I had a lot of judgment towards my mom, where I felt she should be doing life differently, right? And I had to stop and pause and say, that's her journey. It's not for me to decide what her life needs to be, what she needs to look like, what things need to be for her, how she should be living her life. That was an ego trap on my end. And that's a part of my path, is to take a look at, where am I having ego traps? Where is their judgment? Where can I not see oneness? For me to be able to come and recognize, okay, that's her journey. How do I love you and support you as you're showing up in this world? Same thing for anybody else in my life, right? To say, how can I, it doesn't mean that I need to, so that's where the Western science for me comes in, and setting boundaries, right? I can set boundaries, but I can also see that that's her journey, and I honor your journey, you know? I don't know what your thoughts are on this concept of ego traps,
you know,
in spirituality.
It's very interesting, because whenever you speak, it's almost like there's some synchronicity, and I definitely sort of resonate certain. It's almost like I was going to say the exact same thing. So there's this concept in the Gnostic philosophy of being in the world but not of the world.
Of the world, yeah.
And it's the same.
Saying.
It is, isn't it? And it really reminds me of what you just said, because you know there's that human. We're really sort of. It's almost like this yin yang. We're trying to balance being human and also that part of us that isn't from here, that's from the source, the real us, and we're trying to balance the two identities. And I believe that. You have to have a balance of esoteric and exoteric practices. But at the end of the day, for me, I don't know what you think, it's very important that you do not let the exoteric side take over, because that's the ego trap, in my opinion. So I'll give you a good example. So I understand that living in Britain, which undoubtedly has been a historically racist country, it would almost be nihilistic of me to just neglect the fact that I'm seen as a black man here, and undoubtedly that has unfortunately, I've received racial abuse here, it would be almost nihilistic of me to just deny that. So I understand that
Sure.
as that human side of me, that is part of my identity. I'm a Caribbean male living in Britain, and that informs my experiences here to some extent. But I do not let that be it. I do not let that weigh me down. I come to a point where I step back, as you said, almost with your mum, where you've sort of said, she, that's her journey. It's almost, if somebody is a racist person, and I've, experienced this many times in Britain, you know, there's the element of me that says they should be educated, and that, if they were educated a certain way, they wouldn't be this way. But then there's the other side of me, which is the esoteric path, which is the inner path, by knowing that if I cultivate what's right within me, then if I naturally inspire other people to no longer be racist and to improve themselves, then so be it. And I have that balance. And this reminds me of the Tao philosophy, because the Tao philosophy ultimately states that the more laws you have and the more regulations that you have, the further away from the source you get. So we have laws that are in place to govern human behavior, which are necessary. But then there's also this esoteric path, and I've experienced this myself, that the more spiritual I feel and connected with my deeper self, the more I just naturally behave in a natural accordance. And this is what I try and I used to try and tell my mum when she was younger. She used to say, James, come on, clean your room. And I'll say, Mum, when I'm feeling the vibe, I'll just do it. Don't worry about that. And I'll always remember they went away for a vacation when I was younger. They went to Barbados. And I was 2 weeks to myself. I just got into a real nice spiritual zone, like routine every night, just feel really good. And the house was spotless. And when Mum came home, she was like, why is it when I tell you to do this stuff, you never do it? But you just did it while we were away. And I said, it just came naturally. I don't know, something just flowed from within me. I just did it. I didn't even have to tell myself, James, you need to tidy the room now. I just found myself doing all of those chores. I just found myself doing it because it just flowed naturally.
It felt good to you.
And it felt good. It felt
Yeah,
just this
good to hear.
harmony. It felt this such
Amazing.
a harmony.
Balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that a lot of people right currently, especially with life going on, that life is out of balance for them. I mean, you use the word
Yeah, yeah.
harmony, right?
Hmm.
Many would say that a lot of the problem that the world is facing currently is that it's lacking spirituality.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I don't even 100% know what,
Hmm.
when they say that, what they're inferring to. Um, I I personally believe that people may not know what their personal values are, that they may not know um, personal morals and ethics are. Morals and ethics are rooted in every philosophy, right? A lot of
Hmm.
these philosophies that you're referring to are based in morals and ethics. But what I love about philosophy is that it's a guideline.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a guideline there to help you explore what you do believe and what you don't. It is not anything that's there telling you how to live your life. You are supposed to question the teachings. I love
Hmm.
every teacher that I've studied with has really burst and spoken to this concept about, yes, don't take my word for it, go experience it yourself, and
Yeah.
then tell me. you know
Hmm.
um i have a lot of I have a lot of friends out here who try everything because they want to help themselves so much, right?
Hmm.
They're willing to do anything, everything from shamanism techniques to different kinds of medicine journeys, to different types of um, just everything that you can think of, James. And a lot of it is looking for that magic pill,
Yeah.
wanting to um, fix themselves and to not suffer and
Hmm.
to get to this place of wholeness,
Hmm.
right? And um, they'll use the words that this was supposed to be magical and it was supposed to be magical. and and I think a lot of what stands out for me here is that when we start perhaps altering ourselves, so I don't even want to judge that because that's their
Yeah.
journey too, right?
Yeah.
That is their journey. I guess for me it's the message that we're sending to people regardless of what their path is, right? Like let's say it is journeying through different forms of medicine, and let's say it is the path of ancient literature or wisdom that then gets built from the ancient literature. Whatever the journey is, I think it's about differentiating that it's not always going to, like as you said, use the word pretty, that it's not always going to be pretty. And I think that if people can start to, because that's where the trap comes in, where they have this expectation or they feel like they're doing it wrong because it's not so calm for them or it's not so zen for them, and they're experiencing all this upheaval in their life. And this technique that's supposed to help them feel better is now actually not helping them feel better, but in fact it's brought up things for them. So I think it does have a lot to do with the message that's being sent out to people. And I'm not sure if there's anything that I could do to change that other than to, the programs that I teach. I'm very clear in saying that, these techniques can be helpful for those who have anxiety and depression. At the same time, we need to be aware of what your window for tolerance is.
Yeah,
how much can you tolerate at this moment in time based off of your life situation and circumstances? And also the question that this is a whole nother topic I bring up, is who gets to heal, right? Who has the privilege of healing? Who has the privilege of experiencing spirituality? Who has the privilege? Well, all of us, right? Because we are spiritual beings.
Exactly.
But who is healing often marketed to, or spirituality per se? It's those who can afford to pay a certain level.
Yeah, yeah, and this is very true. This is very true. So a very good example is there's a company. Well, I think they're international, to be honest with you. And I won't say the name, but they marketing. And in some ways, it's quite authentic. So I'm not saying they're inauthentic, but there's a certain target audience who they are clearly trying to reach. And a very good example was I actually just spoke to my business partner, and he lives in New York, and some of his friends who sort of he knows around, and not his friends, I think just people who come across the page in the area, they were very confused because to them, and this shows you how different people perceive the symbolism. So to them, when they saw the Buddha on our page, they immediately thought that we were promoting the religion of Buddhism. Whereas this other company in Birmingham, in the UK, who have essentially they use ancient wisdom to market their products. When people see the Buddha on one of their shower gels, for example, or one of their products, or an article written so profoundly about the Buddhist teachings, there's a difference in the way it's perceived. It's not seen as, oh, this is Buddhism, and this shows you that different persons, depending on their upbringing, what religion they belong to. So many Christians may see the Buddha, a symbol of the Buddha, as an idol and not something to associate with, not something to learn from at all. And I had to stop myself many years ago. I think this was an ego trap that you were talking about many years ago. I used to find myself getting into debates with people about sort of, I wouldn't say religious debates, but debates about different teachings. So in Birmingham, where I live, it's very common for either Christians or Muslims to approach you and be sometimes quite forceful and quite aggressive, trying to tell you that their path is the right path and the only path. And perhaps an ego trap for me when I was younger was that I would get into those debates and I would feel compelled to get them to see a more open-minded attitude, to try and get them to open their mind to every time, you know, they approach me and try and tell me that Christianity or Islam is the right way. It's not my responsibility to stop and tell them, no, you're wrong. You need to start thinking like this. You need to be more open-minded. That's not my responsibility at all. And that is the esoteric path, and that is what's so important to me, is the internal path, the inner experience, the fact that when you cultivate that inner sense of spirituality, and I love some of the examples that you gave in our last conversation, and when you talked about your own experiences, they're so esoteric. They speak to your own personal transformation, and from that own personal transformation, you're able to authentically and naturally just inspire and come
Others.
across the right people, and it makes a big difference, doesn't it? You know.
And that's it, right? Like I was actually just gonna ask you, so and when is it your responsibility? Because for me, it's become my responsibility only for those who I
Mm.
know would benefit or who have possibly gone through similar experiences to me. But even then, right,
Yes,
they will know if
yes,
I'm the
yes,
right fit
yes.
for them or not. And I don't look at myself as this teacher to them. It's more as you unravel,
Hmm.
as you unlearn and relearn, as you come closer to true self, I'm here to support you. But
Yeah.
it is this concept of, I'm passing on information that I feel is um, helped me transform has helped me transform my life, right? These are the tools that have helped me transform. It's been a very traditional path. I have not
Hmm.
sought anything other than Eastern philosophy because it found me.
Hmm.
I didn't go looking
Yeah,
for it; it found me,
exactly,
and
exactly. Hmm.
that's where I pay it forward, right? And that's where I say that, it feels a little bit like dharma, which includes that my life experiences have brought me here.
Hmm.
But I also don't like to get into social media debates unless it, and even if I do get into a social media debate, it is this concept of how can I actively get my message across, and speak truth, but it doesn't mean that I have to be an asshole about it. Can I speak truth and can I share what I am trying to say? Um, that might include teachings, but also include personal experience and life experience, without it being opinion per se. It's
Yes.
more of direct experience, and I'm
Mhm.
speaking based off of not really an opinion, it is life experience mixed in with concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a big difference as well, because we talk about ego traps. It can be a real ego trap. These debates. It can be a real ego trap, but it's a sign of really good mental discipline when you can rein yourself in, when you can stop yourself. And there's actually a saying in one of my Sufi books, that can't remember off the top of my head, but about spirituality being very important in the midst of moments of temptation, and showing that sign of spiritual maturity that you're able to rein yourself in and stop yourself from doing something which is perhaps an ego trap or will do a disservice to your spirituality. And that is a really important skill to learn. And that's something that took me quite a bit of time. I'll be honest with you. It took, in my sort of sort of late adolescent years and early 20s, it took me a lot of time to get over that, and to just stop and to not feel the urge to prove that this is right and that somebody else was wrong. But I'm at peace with it now, and you can
Yeah.
definitely look back in hindsight that it was an ego trap. It was really you just trying to prove something. But my philosophy now is, if you're so comfortable in your spiritual practice and your true self, you don't necessarily need to prove it to somebody else.
No, for sure. And I know that because we're going to continue to, as long as we're living, we are going to have things that are going to move us one way
Yeah.
or the other, right? Positively or negatively. And these life experiences are going to create ways that we either respond or react. And because we are human beings, it will not be perfect every single time, right? And we will have to course correct and course correct and course correct and course correct. And I look forward to that journey of course correction in my life. You know, I have no expectation of showing up perfectly despite being a spiritual practitioner. I have no expectation of, like I said, getting it right every single time. I do try to honor the teachings and to honor what's showing up. And there are some days where, like I said, because I'm a human being, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here. I'm putting myself in this category of being a human being. And I think that is something, it's my opinion, that I think that's something that people forget, that we are human beings here. You know, we're not robots. We're not meant to be perfect, that we will make mistakes and we will potentially learn from our mistakes or potentially not. And the same lesson may continue to up until we do, you know, and I think that, and my hope for myself is that I can continue to honor other people's journey regardless of where they are, and that they can honor mine. We are able to set boundaries with the people that we need to set boundaries with, that we are able to invite oneness in where it's able to let its way in, or able to see ourselves as spiritual beings who are here to evolve and to grow. You know, and that's kind of where I would leave it.
And I think just on top of that, a great way to do that is just simply listening to somebody else.
Sure.
You know, my girlfriend, I would say she's, you know, without intending to, she's helped me to cultivate spirituality so much. And one of the most simple exercises that I do is just humbly listening to her. You know, it doesn't matter what she's talking about, whether it's, you know, just how her day at work was. And there's a spiritual essence in that. You can find
Being
that.
present.
Being present with somebody, it is so important, and it makes such a difference. And it's not an ego thing that you do for the rewards, that, you know, she's gonna be all happy that I listened to her. No, just be in that moment and just listen
Yeah.
to her. Humble yourself. You know, 2 ears, 1 mouth. So
Yeah. James, I had such a great time chatting with you today.
yeah, I enjoyed it as well. So in short, to summarize, in true philosophical fashion, yes and no, you can get spiritual quick.
Correct. Yes and no.
mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
thank you for everybody who joined in and who contributed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Priya, for joining us. And I'll try and save this and upload it onto our page. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Bye.